Let's go. Hey, welcome to the Pull Up Podcast. This is your guy, one and only Coach Tony. Obviously, extending from our Tuesday night episodes of Interludes Talk on Tuesday with none other than my girl Val, the voice. Man, this has been a long time coming into the podcast. It's been absolutely awesome. The funny part about it is that been in a position all year to introduce this Pull Up Podcast. And people have been asking me, man, when are we going to jump it off, coach? And I said, I'm waiting for the right guest to bring on. And tonight, to introduce my inaugural episode one on the Pull Up Podcast show, I got my friend, my guy, my mentor in the coaching business, and then some. Inspirational to a lot of guys and been around the business for a long, long time. You guys are going to love this show. You're going to love this podcast as we grow. We're going to do this in leaps and bounds. Make sure that you like us in the comment. Make sure you tune in and subscribe to the show. But it's the one and only Coach Tony and the Pull Up Podcast.
It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. Bounce the voice and Coach Tony, it's the Pull Up Podcast. So, I said bounce the voice and Coach Tony, it's the Pull Up Podcast. So, it's the Pull Up Podcast.
On the Pull Up Podcast show tonight, coming to you live in the studios, in the Pull Up Podcast studio. Tonight, we got a guest that's going to just, when I say just rock your world, phenomenal. Been around in the coaching game for several decades. A lot of guys. He's touched a lot of NBA guys. He's spoken at a lot of camps. He's done a lot of camps. Inspirational to a lot of guys. Again, my guy, the one and only Coach Quanzo Martin. We call him Coach Zoe, coming from none other than the Boogie. Y'all know the Boogie. You better do some homework. So, what's up, baby?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm wonderful. Getting this podcast pulled together, man, and they had asked me several times about guests, about people, and this and that. I want you to know I had absolutely no qualms of who I wanted on my show to introduce this show. You've been an inspiration. You've been a friend. You've been a confidant. And anytime that I've needed anything, I don't care if it's from the smallest question to the biggest question, whether you had time or you didn't have time, you always got back to me, man. And I really appreciate that.
No, thank you, man. You've been good to me. You're a good person, man. A kind heart. You're a worker, man. It's the least I can do.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get started here on this pull-up, man, in these 4 quarters. People don't realize, let's go back in the day. You from, as we say, the Boogie. Some of these people that don't know the Boogie, that's outside of St. Louis. We call East St. Louis, man. Let's take us back to the hometown, man, and kind of introduce the fans to you, Zoe.
Man, thank you. I grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois, and I always say Illinois because oftentimes if I just say East St. Louis, people assume it's in St. Louis on the Missouri side, but East St. Louis is across the river, Mississippi River on the Illinois side. If you're from the Chicago area, you call it the southern part of Illinois, and it's a great place, man. It's my home. A lot of wonderful people there. Some might call it East Boogie, some call it 89 Block, some call it the City of Champions because it's a small city, but we create a lot of championships in all sports, and it's a beautiful place. We've had some rough patches here, but we'll get it back turned around.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And speaking of champions, you came out of none other than East St. Louis, Lincoln itself. And I remember battling you guys. Woo, I'm a Morgan Park guy, south side of Chicago. So, we used to take that trip down 57, and it wasn't nice. But when we came down at that time, you guys had a point guard. You give me fits, man, and Cook. Cook was who? He was tough. And then, of course, later on, as I got into my senior years, when we were, pretty solid at Morgan Park, you guys had none other than Alfonso Ellis we had to battle against too, man. And then you go up the street against Easy Ed Horton and them boys at Springfield Amphitheater.
Yeah. Man, those are good times there, man. A lot of great basketball, a lot of great teaching, a lot of camaraderie, man. I mean, that was one of the last days of really just valuing team and the relationships of bonding, man. So it was beautiful basketball. I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, that was all. Now, how many siblings do you got, Coach?
I have three. So I have one brother, two sisters. Yes.
Okay. Did you end up being the only one in the family that ended up going on and being a ball player? Did they pretty much
Yes,
sports
well,
related?
so my brother, he was a big time football and track. He didn't finish up, got himself in little situations, but he's doing a lot better today. My two sisters, one was a cheerleader, the other one didn't play any sports, but they all doing great, man. But for me, basketball is my driving force, man. And really, I didn't have a vision of where basketball would take me, because when I watched basketball growing up, it was always East St. Louis Lincoln, my high school team. That was the NBA, so to speak, for me. And that was my goal. That after that was to go to college. But back in those times, you weren't adamant about preaching NBA. It was really about, at that point, going to school, getting a degree. Of course, you're on scholarship. You want to be the best version that you can become. And it just kind of let the chips fall where they may. But ultimately, the goal for me was to make sure my mom's life was better by any means necessary.
Oh yeah, that's real talk there. And it's so funny. Back in the early days, I would explain to my son, which you had an opportunity to meet, and about back in the day was a Prop 48. A lot of kids don't remember that Prop 48 to 42, and and it held a lot of guys back. Matter of fact, if you was one of those ball players that even had an opportunity to play in your freshman year, you was solid. And obviously I came out in Chicago during that time. The guys that was leading the as to say the city was them boys coming out of Simeon at that time with my guy Ben Wilson. And Ben was tough. Unfortunately, he ain't here with us today, but Ben was off the hook.
It was tough basketball then, and man, it was about making your way and trying to find a better environment for your families. Because obviously when you come from those humble beginnings, though you live in it, it's a great place. But when you start to remove yourself, you see all the shortcomings and pitfalls that you had to go through to get where you are today, man. And I appreciate all of it, but man, it wasn't easy. By the grace of God, I had a tremendous team around me. I mean, parents, guardians, though my father wasn't in my life every day, but I knew how to find them. But also there were other men that helped and played a part, coaches, Little League baseball coaches. A lot of people had a major impact on my life.
Oh, yeah. That's funny you say that. I talked to my young guys in my AAU program, same thing. The old man wasn't there, but my high school coach and Herb Ray, and Coach Bob Hambrick down in Simeon, those guys stayed tight with us and made sure that, we didn't have the AAU, so to speak, at that time. So we played Southside versus Westside. And two best teams at that time in the mid 80s, we had a tournament called the Great Eight. So it's two teams from Milwaukee, two from Chicago, two from Indiana, which used to be your boy Glenn Big Dog Robinson, them and GI, and Indianapolis boys and Henderson them. And then we go out to Detroit, and the top 8 teams in the summer would keep this trophy to the next year. Man, that was the best, as I consider, AAU basketball that you could ever find. And then, you're looking down your way. When did you know that basketball, because your brother's playing football, when you're looking up at things, and, back in the day, we always wanted to do what our big brother, big sister did, but we had to be in by the street lights. That was the code. Don't let the street lights catch you.
You know that. So really for me, baseball was my sport. I love playing baseball. Okay. That was big time. My main position as I got older was a catcher. But if it wasn't if it was a double hitter, I would be in left field. But I could truly play every position on the floor except pitch. I mean, I couldn't pitch at all. But I mean, catcher was my main position, and I would bat between second and fourth. In most cases, as we got older, I was second or third in batting. And as I got older, I was able to switch it. So that is real. So baseball was my thing, man. But basketball came into play. Because as you start getting taller, and one thing about growing up in East St. Louis, that the elementary, junior high, and high school coaches, all those guys kind of work together because they grew up together. And they more or less molded me and kind of saying, well, this is the path you're probably going to take, the basketball path. And there was no problem at all because I enjoyed playing basketball, and then it just kind of went from there. But it wasn't no set time where I need to be a basketball player because I had just as much love for baseball, but then basketball started to bring the accolades. Then when you're talking about an opportunity to get a scholarship to go to college to better your life, that was my path. And then you just kind of grow and grow and grow. And I was blessed to play with LaFonso Ellis, who's like a brother to me, was a phenomenal player, man. We won, East St. Louis Lincoln won 3 state championships. I was a part of 2 of them because in East St. Louis at the time, high school started in the 10th grade. So 10th, 11th, and 12th. So my 9th grade year was the first year they won it. And then, so we won it 87, 88, 89. And then my last year, we got 3rd place. So we had great success, man. Benny Lewis, my high school coach, was a phenomenal coach, teacher, man, leader. And it was just wonderful times, man. We had a lot of great teams. And the great thing about us, all the guys were homegrown. We grew up together. We grew up elementary school competing against each other. And obviously, we all went to East St. Louis Lincoln High School and made a lot of history.
Man, and you hear the magic word back in the day, the playground. You don't hear that no more, Zoe. Matter of fact, when, you and I end up connecting down in St. Louis on a couple of my AAU events, I would tell my guys, we're going to go outside on a playground. They're like, Coach, I'm not messing up my shoe. I'm not messing up my shoes. What you talking about, man? The times have changed. But, looking at that East St. Louis at that time, and we was tough at home, baby. We had them flying boys from flying the line out. My guys, I ended up, I had an opportunity as I was coming out playing against Kendall, playing against Nick Anderson and the boys, Liberty and the boys at the crib in the city and all that. How did Gene Keady get the opportunity to lure you from St. Louis, bypassing Sam Bata, going out to Indiana, out to West Lafayette?
Well, great question. Really what it came down to at that time, remember when the situation took place around Deion Thomas surrounding it, a phone call with Bruce Pearl and all that.
I remember.
That's what slowed me up because what happened, they were talking about Illinois getting the death penalty at that time. And if you get the death penalty, that's like 3+ years, no NCAA tournaments, no major tournaments, losing a lot of games. So it's like, man, I need to figure out something else because Jimmy Collins and also Coach Dick Nagy both did a phenomenal job recruiting me because that's where I was going until that happened. Then it just kind of, at that point, I opened my recruitment up. And then what it came down to at that time, when the smoke cleared, it was Connecticut with Jim Calhoun and Coach Keady at Purdue. And the night before making my decision, my mom just said, Coach Keady seems like a good man. Not that Coach Calhoun wasn't, but Coach Keady seems like a good man. And really, in a nutshell, what Coach talked about, if you go to class every day, you'll get a degree. If you work hard, you'll play. And I think I chose Purdue because it was closer to East St. Louis as opposed to Connecticut. That means you get on a plane. And I didn't want to be away from my mom unless I had to be that far away. And Purdue is a 4.5-hour drive, even though we didn't have a car, but 4.5 hours drive is better than, getting on the plane. So that's why it turned out to be Coach Keady, and it was one of the best decisions I made in my life.
Oh, yeah, man. And love that old school gym back in the day down there, man. And I tell you what, the camps are totally different now, too. We came up doing ABDC camp, and a lot of these guys didn't get an opportunity to do that where the coaches had to come. I remember, out on 79th Street in Chicago, on the west side of Chicago, where the coaches actually came out and then they invited you to a lot of the camps that we were going to go. What were some of the early camps that you had an opportunity to partake in? How did they influence, some of your basketball, the way it was sculptured?
Well, it's a great question, Tony, but it's funny you ask because when people ask me that all the time, when guys start talking about AAU tournaments, functions they've been to, and all the running slam and all these different events, we didn't do anything but Benny Lewis had us in the gym. So all that talent we had, we never played AAU ball, especially when it came on the scenes. Benny Lewis had us in the gym. So all year round, we were in the gym. So when the season's over, he had the gym open, I think like Sunday to Thursday. So we were always in there because the older guys would come back and play. So now you're talking about playing AAU ball. We playing against older guys that guys we looked up to. They come to the gym coming back from college or professional careers. And now you getting that type of run. That's big time run. Physical, tough, hard nose, no fouls. The gym closed, man. You talking about from 6 p.m. to probably 10 p.m. all summer long. So it's like that was the place to be. So we just got better and better. So then we never feared an opponent because the guys we went up against, plus in East St. Louis, man, you don't fear anybody, let the chips fall where they may. But because of all the talented guys who went up to and they passed it down to us, that's how this thing's supposed to go. And you represent East St. Louis. That was a level of pride behind that. And just we had to learn how to embrace our uniqueness. We different. They say we Southern boys or this and that, okay, and we just competed. But the great thing about us, we had a camaraderie, man, that couldn't be broken. We still have great relationships to this day because we understood in order for us to win, we all have to pitch in. And it was a beautiful, beautiful experience.
Oh, man, that when I say you speaking my language right now, I feel like I'm in a French class. You know, that's the whole work ethic, you know, and that's the stuff that we talk. That's what you talked about with your players. That's what you talked about with the guys that are getting an opportunity to get next level. Now you find yourself at Purdue, you're down in West Lafayette. You know, the great thing about it, you're in St. Louis, so you don't worry about the weather because the weather's pretty much the same.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, and then you get my boy, Big Dog, coming from GI, end up connecting with him on the yard. So, and then you guys had y'all had a tough squad coming in at Purdue. You guys went back-to-back Big Ten. I think your sophomore, junior year, I think it was.
It was 3 in a row. So we won. So I was a part of 2 of them. So 94, 95, and they won in 96. Now, for people that don't know me, and I'm not a liar, but for people that don't know me, I claim the 96 too, because those are like my brothers too, because 3 or 4 of those guys redshirted. We came in together, they redshirted. So I say we won 3 Big Ten championships in a row, but I was only a part of 2. And it was great times, man. But Glenn kind of set the tone. And then obviously you're talking about he's the last college player to average 30 and 10. Yeah, I think he averaged 30 points, 10 plus rebounds, 2+ blocks, 2+ steals a game. The last guy to do that, man, just phenomenal numbers. And you talking about double team guys hanging on him, pull up, shoot 3 balls. He was just relentless with it. Just a gifted scorer, man. And just what made him so good, it was just basketball. And I'll give you a story about Dog. Obviously he's my roommate, but and I'll give you 2 contrasting thoughts, and you can make out of what you want to make out of it. So when I was 0 for 6 from 3-point line my sophomore year, and Coach Katie said, "Zoe, stop shooting threes." And that's probably we only played 10 games. "Zoe, stop shooting threes." So I stopped shooting them and he said for the whole year. So I never shot another 3. I was 0 for 6. My sophomore year never shot another 3. Now on the flip side of that, Dog might have been shooting 27 or 28% from 3. And Coach said, "Dog, stop shooting threes. You know, this. The next game he came out, he's 5 for 7 for 3. But it just shows you the mentality that he had. And the thing about it, he didn't come out as a selfish player. Like, he came out because that's what I do. He didn't come out to say, "Coach, I'm going to show you up." He came out like, "This is what I do." And his mentality, he was locked and loaded. His mindset was what it was. And he was one of the first guys I'd really seen. No matter what happens on the floor, if he had the ball in his hand, the play can be designed for somebody else. But if he had the ball in his hand and you gave him an angle to score, he was always a threat every time down. And that's what made him so tough to guard. Oh, yeah, he was very tough. You know, I remember just the high school days going down in that GI and Gary Roosevelt. Man, them boys, you know, it was a whole other ball game. But, you know, excuse me. But it was so funny because they were so close to the south side of Chicago. We pretty much adopted GI as part of almost like the suburb, even though it wasn't our suburb, you know? You know, it was amazing. And now you find yourself at Purdue, you're down there, you battle in the Big Ten, and now the time and the opportunity comes, you get the dream that a lot of guys don't get. And this wasn't the Memphis Grizzlies, this was the Vancouver, the original Grizzlies that had an opportunity to draft you. Take us through that process. Man, it was a great one. Just so I got drafted by the Atlanta Hawks. That's who drafted me, and it was a phenomenal experience. But leading up into that, because I had my first major knee surgery in the 9th grade, so I was 87. And my second major knee surgery before I entered Purdue. Then I had the third one go October of my senior year, but I never missed. I missed exhibitions. I never missed a game. Right. And so really at that point, when it was coming down to it, I knew that I wouldn't be a guy that could be in the NBA for 10 years because of my knees. I knew that once they saw my knees on the x-rays, there's no way in the world. Plus I couldn't, I don't think my knees could hold up at that level. Right. So really my prayer was to God, just allow me to hear my name get drafted. And I was okay with that because I understood it. It wasn't like I was doubting myself, but I understood. I knew the impact of my knees. And then the 55th pick in the NBA draft was, and for those, my name is Konzo. So the 55th pick in the NBA draft, they said, in the 55th pick, Konstantin Pope. I said, oh, man. You're going to do it like that. So, and that's what it was. And then, so I was the 57th pick by Atlanta, ended up getting cut by Atlanta, which was great, played in the CBA. And I got picked up that year by the Vancouver Grizzlies, which was great. And I was, if you ever hear trivia, I was the first call up for the Vancouvers in the history of their program. I was the first one to ever get called up, and it was a great experience. And next year I got called up by Milwaukee Bucks. So really good experience to say I was a part of it. But I also understood the reality that I couldn't last long in the league just because of my knees. But it was great to feel that.
Yeah, and the crazy part about that, what you just said, just look at what God does. Then you get called up and go to the Bucks, and you end up being reunited with your boy Big Dog.
Exactly. It was a great time, man. And it was just going back in the gym. It was fun times, man. And just to see him grow and mature as that basketball player and be a star player with he and Vin Baker, it was phenomenal. Then they brought Ray Allen on. They had a great trio between him, Vin, and Ray Allen. It was special.
Ray Allen, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they were special. And Ray was just coming out that championship year with UConn. And the crazy part about this, you had a great opportunity, whether you went to Purdue and did what you did, or took Coach Calhoun, went to UConn, both had a great run. You're going to have that great, successful college career. Then you find yourself, like most of us, figuring out, okay, now NBA is not going to be an opportunity for me. I need to figure out something else. And then all of a sudden, you get an opportunity to go to Europe and play FIBA basketball, end up in Italy. How did that go?
It was a wonderful experience, man. Just to because we went on a college trip going into my junior year. So we went France, Belgium, I think Amsterdam, Antwerp, one of them, and for like 10 days. So that was great as a team. But you get over there, you're ready to go after 5 days. You're ready to get back home. You don't really understand the impact of being abroad and really studying life in different cultures. And so now I have a chance to be a professional and get paid to go over there and play. I was in Avellino, Italy. It was a phenomenal experience. But, the downside of that was in November, I was running down the court, and all of a sudden I get to half court and I'm breathing like this, and I just pass out. And I pass out in the court. And so they take me back in the training room, and the trainer, he couldn't speak any English. So what he was trying to say, he was saying, when you first came over, because I came over in August, he said, when you first came over, you were big, but now you're small. And so they took me to the hospital. They did tests, x-rays, and blood work. And then later on that day, the owner of the team, who's Italian, who's from Italy, but his wife was Italian, but from New York, so she could speak fluent English. And she was just explaining to you need to get back to the States immediately. And my wife and my son, Joshua, they were over there. Joshua was probably 3.5, maybe 4 months at the time, somewhere around there. So my wife, they came over. They were already over for about 3.5 months. So it's in, they did tests, x-rays, and blood work at the hospital, and they just say you need to get back to the States. So the next morning we went from Rome, flew to New York to Indianapolis, where we lived. And we got back in the house. I would say we got home that night. It was probably a little after 1 o'clock in the morning. And I had my son, and I had him. My wife was kind of taking the bags. I had my son. I just kind of dropped him on the couch. I mean, I didn't drop him hard, just dropped him on the couch. And I went and sat in the other chair, just kind of exhausted. I just said to my wife, we need to get to the hospital immediately because I was just out of it. And then, so we were in the hospital in Indianapolis. So now they did tests, x-rays, and blood work in Indianapolis. So now it's probably, after they did all that, so now it's probably 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:15, maybe 3:30. And my wife is, sitting across from me. The doctor's right in front of me. And he just says, I don't know if you're going to die, but this is life-threatening.
Oh, wow.
And I look at my wife. I just look at her, and I glance away quickly because I didn't want to really make eye contact with her. Not that I was afraid of being in tears, but I wanted to be strong for her because I wasn't really sure what was going on. So after they did the biopsy to figure out what it was, they were hopeful that it was tuberculosis.
Okay.
But if in hoping it's tuberculosis, my wife and son, they couldn't stay in the hospital with me that night because they couldn't be in a room with me. So I was in a room by myself. Yes. And then my whole prayer to God. Now, imagine when I went to Italy, I was 215 pounds. So now this is November, paid November the 16th, 17th. I'm 185 pounds now.
Wow.
So I lost that much weight. And so I'm in the room that night. And all I'm really praying to God was allow me to see my son Joshua turn 18. At this point, he's 4. He's my first son. He's 4 months old. Just allow me to see him turn 18. And then God, whatever happens after that, I understand. So, and then when they did the biopsy to try to figure out what it was, they came back and they said it was a non-Hodgkin lymphoma, which is a form of cancer. But what they found was found a tumor about the size of a baseball between my chest and lung area. And so I had to do chemotherapy for about 4.5 months. So that was probably the toughest fight of my life. So my experience in Italy, though it was a great one, that was a life-changing one right there. So, yes.
Oh, yeah. Woo, that's amazing, man. And we talk about God's blessing. God is blessing in the blessing game. We're going to take a pause real quick at this halftime, Coach. We're going to pay some bills real quick. You guys are listening to my guy, Coach Kwanzo Martin, as we call him, Coach Zoe, on the Pull Up Podcast show. We're going to pay some bills real quick. We'll be right back to the show.
Hey, everyone. This is Val the Voice Johnson. Great to see you all. Oh, my gosh. This is the Pull Up Podcast, and we're so grateful that you're joining us on this wonderful Monday evening. At halftime, we want to let you guys know that I am now a podcaster, also a motivational speaker, but also at this time, I am an author. It is time for A DJ Saved My Life. If you want more information on the book, and it's pre-release, it's in pre-release right now. You see this wonderful QR code? Go ahead and scan it. And go ahead and pick up a pre-copy of A DJ Saved My Life. It is about my time through grief and how podcasting saved my life. Oh my gosh. Well, guys, it's time to pull up and pull up and pull up. Here we go again.
It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. Bounce the voice and Coach Tony, it's the Pull Up Podcast. So.
Man, coming out of halftime, so you go in that locker room and get a halftime speech. Let's go, boys. That's incredible. And the phenomenal thing is, for most people, they would have quit. For most people, they would have stopped. For most people to get back, I've met your family, your wife, your boys, man. It's been great. Tell the family I said definitely say hello. And you got my guy, in that Purdue uniform right now making moves. So you get back, you get home, they get you squared away. What are your thoughts right now in terms of playing basketball again or retiring from basketball? And then how did the coaching bug bite you to say, if I can't run up and down that court anymore, I want to go ahead and I still want to be involved in a game, but I want to be involved in the game from this aspect?
Well, it was a joy for me to just to be living at that point. Now, what happened was after I went through chemotherapy for about 4.5 months, so my last treatment was April the 20th of 98. And then I signed a contract to go back to play professional ball internationally. And 2 weeks before I was about to go, Coach Katie called me about an opportunity to be on Purdue's staff. But I would have to wait a calendar year to be on their staff, which it worked out anyway, because I had to go back to finish up and get my degree. Because when I was in college for 4 years, I never went to summer school because I felt like I could make more money working. Right. So I never went to summer school at all because I can get more money with a job. So I had to go back that calendar year to finish up school. And so when I finished up school, I started on Purdue's basketball staff in 2000. So I was at Purdue from 2000, 2008. And it was really a great experience for me. But before that, while I was going to school, I lived in Indianapolis, so I was driving back and forth to West Lafayette, which was an hour away. But in the process, I was coaching at West Lafayette High School, and I coached the JV team. So that was a great experience to segue into the college game because, again, you have perceptions, or you perceive how the game's supposed to go, how you're supposed to coach the game as an assistant coach, but you don't know until you're really in it. So that was a great experience for me to coach some young guys and to build relationships with them, to really sharpen your tools and your halftime speeches and all this stuff. So it was a fun time, but I took it very seriously.
That's they're amazing. So then you on Purdue's bench. They had another great run. Coach Katie had a great run, put up some solid numbers. Now you get an opportunity to break out. And I think you get out, and I think you made a move there and went out to SEMO, right?
Yeah, Missouri State.
Yeah, Missouri State.
Yeah.
So you get a chance to make that. Where my boy down there right now, Dana Ford.
Yes. And it was a great experience for me, man. But I will tell you, when I first took that job, that was probably the loneliest time I ever experienced as a head coach, or even in coaching at all, because it was 2008. I just got the job. And, we struggled as a team because you're trying to build your team up, because the guy that was there for 9 years, and he came close many times. Barry Henson came close to getting the NCAA tournament around the cusp of it and did some phenomenal things. So now we're taking over a program, and we were struggling in league play because, you're playing against talented teams. And we probably picked to finish at the bottom, I'm not sure. And it was lonely from the standpoint you felt like as a coach you had nobody to talk to. As assistant coach, you got other guys on staff you talk to and all that. But now as a head coach, you're in a position where you're in a leadership role. So if you talk to your assistant, they're looking to you for direction.
Right.
If you felt like if I talked to other coaches, you don't have it figured out on your own. So now you're in a lonely place. And really, as you get older, you realize everybody need a helping hand. Everybody need a listening ear. But when you're young in the coaching profession, you don't know those things. I could have easily called Coach Katie, "Hey, Coach, I need you." Matt Painter was my teammate, but he's also a head coach. You could easily call guys to lean stuff up, but there's so many other guys, but I just didn't. But the beauty of that all is I was on my knees more than ever, and that's when I really grew through prayer. I just really grew in it because I leaned on God. The ultimate father and an ultimate person for direction and guidance. And he led me, and it was beautiful. And I just grew out of that, and I gained more wisdom, knowledge, and understanding through prayer. And really, I learned how to give more. I learned how to be present with those players on the team. This is the most important thing. Don't get consumed with, okay, what happens in this next game? Be present right here. You learn how to lead. You learn how to have integrity every day, good and bad days. And then the other thing is you have compassion in what you're doing. And the one area I always struggled in up until now was to be rested, because I was always restless, because you're trying to win the next game. You're trying to win the next day. You're trying to prepare. So I never got the rest I should have gotten in the coaching profession, because you're always going and going and going. And your mind is so wired to be successful. And you're always preparing for the next thing, because though your title is a coach, but you're also a father figure. Those become your sons and your children as they get older. You want to make sure they're successful. Yeah, you want to win games, but you also want to grow these guys and help them be successful people in life. And that's an everyday battle.
And, I'm going to tell you how important that was. I remember coming to you. I want to say maybe my second, third year at Fisk University. For some of those that don't know, Fisk University, small black HBCU here in Nashville, Tennessee, and got my start. And I remember reaching out to you, and I was like, "Joe, man, I got an opportunity to do this and that." And I was trying to get some moves, actually trying to get over there and work with you and do some things. And I remember you telling me, man, one time, you was like, "Hey, Tony, all you need to do, man, stay on the grind, stay on the beaten path, but more important than anything, teach the guys that are under you, that are looking up to you, and make sure they understand not only the game, but they understand the game of life." And do you know that this very day, I got guys that played for me and still play for me that will reach out to me before they reach out to the high school coach, anyone else. I got parents that come to me and say, "Hey, man, my son asks about you all the time because I only know how to win," and I tell a lot of guys, even though I'm in Tennessee, don't let the Tennessee across the chest fool you. I'm still coaching Chicago, baby. We still Southside. See, I got that Southside. We still gonna ride or die. But the good thing about it is that your mindset is in a good place. God hears your prayers. Now all of a sudden, the big doors open. Now you jump up from that and get a chance to jump into the Power 5 and land yourself in Knoxville, Tennessee at the University of Tennessee. And man, I drove out to many games to watch you in Knoxville, and of course in the SEC tournament when you came to Nashville. But,
Yes.
how was that a difference from now coming out of that mid-major program and dealing with kids that you just kind of had to figure out on your own, but at the same time, they were looking up to you. Now you're at a Power 5 program. You just come right behind Bruce Weber. Now you got to make something happen.
Well, I think the biggest thing, and I'll always remember, regardless to whatever levels, for me, is always doing it with integrity. That's first and foremost. Then you also have to realize you're always good enough and you're always smart enough. So I think oftentimes as Black men, we wrestle with that at times because we want to be the best we can be. Or you try to fight stereotypes or profession. You're good perceptions, but you're good enough. And I think that's the biggest thing. But for me, in making decisions, everything I do, I always try to be clear, concise, and consistent. Whatever I was doing, even in making decisions, because there were several opportunities. We were blessed to have success in Missouri State, so there were several opportunities to go to other places. And I felt like Tennessee was the best one for me, so I made that decision. And in the end, it was a great experience. It was a great life experience. And because what that did for me on a consistent basis, it helped me apply, or it made me, help me apply discipline, focus, and consistency in my daily movements. And I think what happens is you teaching your young players to understand that. And I would always talk to those guys about, and all you do, you got to eliminate decisions made on an emotional roller coaster. Because if you have ups and downs and highs and lows, that's when the distractions take place, and that's when the chaos takes place. So you got to be sound in your decision making. You can't worry about what's swirling around. You got to be focused on the task at hand. And I've always tried to live by that.
Oh man, and that came to fruition. When I saw you take a struggling California Bears team with Jaylen Brown and the guys and turn it around. And when you went to California, I don't like saying the naysayers, but you got guys that just didn't think that once you hit the Pac-12 that Zoe was going to be it because of everything that just happened out of the SEC. So now you're at California, and you had a hell of a squad out there, man. You had some kids that was playing ball top level at that time. A lot of the guys didn't have big names in the nation. And obviously we see what happened to Jaylen, went on and played with the Boston Celtics and had a great career.
Well, the strange thing about when I was in the SEC, we had the third most wins and the third most road wins in the SEC behind Kentucky and Florida in my 3 years in the SEC. The one thing about for me, always, it doesn't matter the programs. I've always been a guy that's a builder, and so I have no problem with that. As leaders, we have to continue to breathe hope into these young lives. You got to breathe hope into these young lives. And because when they lose hope, they lose their ability to dream. And when that happens, we're all in trouble. So I think ultimately, you don't want them to lose their determination, their focus, their resiliency, and ultimately, more than anything, is their faith. You want them to never lose that. Because at the end of the day, whatever happened, the ball stopped bouncing. The goal is to help him because one day he will be somebody's husband, father, he'll be a teacher, he'll be a leader, and ultimately a pillar in this community. So what did you really give him in the 2 to 4 years he was in your program? Did you really pour into him? Because if it's all about just winning games, then you lost that young man.
Right. That's exactly right. And then so you guys tonight, glad you tuned in tonight with my guy, Coach Conzo Martin, as we call him, Coach Zoe. Coach Tony here on the Pull Up Podcast show Monday nights. We're gonna continue to bring you information and great guests like we're doing tonight. Now, Coach, you get that message, and that's one of the best messages I think that you can give a young ball player, a young kid, and many of your kids, even some that never made it to that next level, wind up going on into the coaching game. Now you get to Missouri, and you hit Missouri at a time that it was unrest. When I say unrest, I don't mean at the university. I'm talking about unrest politically. Unrest, a lot of things that was going on, riots. You had to make your way down to Missouri. That wasn't an easy task. So you in cool California, LA. Now you're sitting way out in the middle of Missouri, man. How did that go?
Well, I've always had a hunger for changing programs and ultimately a hunger for success. But I also know that it takes time, it takes commitment, it takes hard work, and it's the resiliency behind it. And you can't lose focus. And, You have to allow the smoke to clear. Like I would always tell our players, you're gonna always hear stuff.
Right.
And it's always coming through your ears. So which one is it? Is it noise or is it music? Well, I like listening to music.
Okay.
I drown out the noise. And I think that's very important to help young guys understand that. And then you have to consistently develop the courage in you to raise your expectations. And then when you do that, you raise everybody's expectations around you. I think that's the most important thing. But I think oftentimes we get so consumed with what people are saying, when we assume they say about us, what they're thinking about us. Well, it's none of my business what you think about me. I have to do my job. I have to be the best version of me every day. And that's all I'm concerned with.
Yeah, that's, I mean, when I say 100, that's 100. I remember you telling me about this little kid. You said, I remember you and I were talking. I just came out the event down in Missouri, and you said, Tony, I don't know if you heard of this guy, man, but I got the baby boy, he's been hurt a little bit, man, but this kid named Michael Porter Jr., you going to hear about his name. I'm like, who? I do my research, and he stayed hurt for quite a bit. And all of a sudden, he got himself together. And man, he's sold out now and got a ring on his hand out in Denver with Joker now.
Mike was you talking about it. And I think this is safe to say, if people have been around, he's one of the better shooters. He's probably the best shooter I've ever been around that I have. I've seen the guy in practice with guys hanging on like 7 threes in a row. Just if he get it up, his form, and he works hard. He works on his game. He wants to be good. Mike's a talented scorer. With all the success he's having in the NBA, and he's very successful, very talented player. He works hard. He competes. I can only imagine if he was 100% healthy. I mean, 'cause I think Maloney came out and said it's admirable what Mike is doing in the NBA because of what he had to go through to get his back to the level it is now just to be ready to play. I mean, The guy was an athlete. He worked hard. He's an elite level rebounder. Then, I mean, but you talk about shooting the ball, man. Elite level shooter. And his brother Jonte was a young one, got hurt the sophomore year, left high school early, came in at 6'11" pass. Now he's with the Toronto Raptors doing very well, but their family did a great job, man. But those guys, they work hard and they stay out of harm's way, and they've been blessed with gifts.
Yeah, man, they've done some good things, And then speaking of gifts, I see that. I remember when I got an opportunity with Val to launch this, and she called me one day. And I had just, matter of fact, spoken to you. We were on the phone talking about a couple of things because my guy, Johnny Dawkins, my guy down in Florida. I think you were down there at UCF on a visit, doing a speech. Yes. And I ended up, reaching out to you. And now, what do you think? Not on the men's side of the house, though, but man, my girl, Coach Tara Vanderbilt just became an all-time winningest coach, men or women, passing coach. What do you got to say about that? That's just awesome to me.
Man, it's salute to Coach Vanderveer. I mean, she put the work in, she put the time in. But, when we're in this profession, you have to give her all the accolades and all the praise because that's a phenomenal feat in the years she's put into it. But then on the flip side, all the sleepless nights she had in order to get where she is now. All the time that she lost from her family because of the practices, the lack of vacations, because, with the NCAA rules, you have to be certain places. You can't go out recruiting. So it's so much goes. You're talking about 40 plus years of just the commitment to being the best version I can possibly be. And she exudes all the qualities of an exemplary leader, teacher, humanitarian. She's very successful. She's done that at a phenomenal institution, man. Just hats off to her because wins are wins. I don't care if male or female. Wins are wins, right. Man. She achieved that. So, I mean, she's at the top of the mountain and she deserves it. Oh, yeah.
I hope as they say, I hope they give her flowers in the real way. You know what I'm saying, Coach? Because she definitely deserves it. I remember when I went out I was in Palo Alto, got an opportunity to hang out with Coach Dawkins. And went down, check out one of his camps he was doing. Got an opportunity to see the campus, beautiful campus. And I got a chance to meet Coach Vanderveer during that same time. My niece, Alexis Jennings, at that time was coming out of high school in Alabama. And she was one of the recruits that they were looking at. And she went on to sign with Kentucky and eventually played with South Carolina. And, but Coach welcomed me in. Showed me the campus, the locker room, sit down and gave me some tidbits about the coaching. At that time, I was very young in what I was doing. And those nuggets just kind of kept. And then now, fast forward years later, I get an opportunity with Val the Voice on the podcast. And now I jump into the podcast world and I see you open and launch your own podcast. Talk about that, man. It all counts, man. What's the objective behind that, and what made you want to jump off in this podcast world? Because you was a phenomenal coach. Don't come over here and don't take in my space, man. You know what I'm saying?
No, thank you. No, thank you, Tony. It just, man, it was one of those deals, man. I thought about it in June of 2022, but I just wasn't ready. Just wanted that peace and space, man, just to enjoy life. Because again, when I left East St. Louis at 18 years old, it felt like I had boxing gloves and track shoes on, just running. Life was going fast, just trying to find my way, and whatever that was. And to be able to have some peace away from it. And then this past June, I said, let's go ahead and launch the podcast. My wife and I, we talked about it. And then more than anything, we wrestled around about the name, with the name, wanted a solid name. And then just something I always say, like, it all counts. And when I say that to our team, it all counts. Like, you got to prepare yourself. You got to go to class every day. You want to be a successful CEO. You got to work on your shot every day. You want to be this. It all counts. And I said, well, there the name is. It all counts. And that's why I went with the name. And really, we've had phenomenal guests. And our show is really about uplifting, but also talking the peaks and valleys of life, because everybody goes through something, and God presents storms to us. And for me, when God presents the storms, I love it, because that means he loves me. He gave me another assignment. Okay. Because I think that's when you grow in the storms. And I've had some of my best lessons via pain. So it's beautiful. So if I don't get a storm, I'm wondering, like, something wrong. I got to knock on this door. Like, did you forget about me? I need that. And I think that's what our show is about. Is people, we've gone through things. Though you might appear to be successful, you might be successful now. What did you go through? Some things you went through that caused trauma, that caused pain, that caused you to doubt. That's part of life, because I think oftentimes we don't give the real version of ourselves to the youth, because when kids see perceptions, now everything on social media, everything is so beautiful. The best looking girl, the best looking guy, big physique and all that. Well, let me see you before you start lifting weights. I mean, so we got to give our kids the best version, so they understand it's okay to fail. And I think in our society nowadays, we don't make it okay for our youth to fail, to make sure we don't allow them the comfort to struggle and go through something. There's no perfection in life. There's only one perfect being. So I think for us, it's allowing our youth to have struggles in life. And I think they will be better off for, because we're not paying attention that the suicide rates have gone through the roof with our teens. They've gone through the roof because they're seeking a certain perception. So we have to be careful in helping our young men and women, educate them, let them know it's okay. It's okay to have bad days. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to get an F on the test. You can bounce back from it. I had plenty of, and I was able to bounce back from it. So you can still be successful. But we got to eliminate this version of perfection, because it's destroying our youth. Yeah, it definitely is. And it's not only destroying the youth, so it's making them self-serving. Basically, the ones that are buying into that are feeling that we owe them something. And I give you a perfect example. I want you to speak about it. So we talk about, I got another one of my shows that comes on tomorrow night, Interludes Talk on Tuesday, when we talk a little bit of entertainment and sports. But the last month of December, I've really been hammering the NIL process. And I was talking to my audience about how we've gone from, Prop 48, right, to graduating seniors was great, to one and dones, to no one wants to go to college, to now we want to stay in college, but we want to get paid for it, because the NCAA slipped and screwed up years ago. Now they're trying to make up for it, and the NIL process is the process that they're trying to jump behind. How has the NIL changed the playing field for especially the Power Five? Because as you and I just seen, the wonderful conference that you came from in the Pac-12 will no longer exist after this year, because they're going to be in the Big Ten, and most of them are going to be in the Big 12. I talked about this 2 years ago. People told me I was crazy. And I told them at that time, you would get the Big Ten and you would get the Big 12, because when you're looking at those schools, they're not going to come across the country to join the SEC. And 2 years later, what happened? Top 4 teams go to the Big Ten. The other ones go to the Big 12. So when you look at the NIL and what it has done to that playing field, what's your thoughts on that? Is it going to get better? Is this here to stay? Or how are these coaches? Because, Nick Saban retired last week, right? And they went to ask him about his reason for retiring. And he says, because I went to sit in a kid's house
and to recruit him to play for the University of Alabama. And the first question out of the kid's mouth was, how much money am I going to get paid? And at that point, I knew it was no longer about football in the University of Alabama. It was now about money. And what I can't do is recruit and talk money when I'm trying to teach and educate this kid for life.
Well, this is complex, and I'll kind of give you the best version I can with the time that we have. And I understand, I respect where Coach Saban is coming from. And he did phenomenal things, and you hate to see a guy like that go, because yes, he won a lot of championships, but I thought he was a phenomenal teacher. You can get a lot of insight from him. But we also have to look back, man, that there's been, 30, 40 plus years where student athletes weren't getting paid, and they should have been getting paid.
Right.
So I'm happy they're getting paid. I wish there was a way, a consistent way we can get paid. So now whether you get kids with, everybody gets $500,000 on the roster, or I'm just talking basketball, everybody gets $500,000. Every other sport, whatever you deem, get $500,000. Great. Give them $400,000. Give them $600,000. Whatever the amount of money. Okay, great. What I like to see the balance in is the transfer portal, because the name, image, and likeness, that's here to stay, and it should stay. Kids deserve to get rewarded. Coaches getting phenomenal money, which they should. Kids should be able to get compensated for the hard work they put in. But I think if we can do something to transfer portal, because I was on an oversight committee when it was coming around, even before it came out, and we were talking about it. And my thing with the transfer portal, nothing wrong with you having a right to go somewhere else. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was giving an example of myself when I was explaining to the committee. I said, if I'm coming out of East St. Louis and I go play for Coach Katie, and I decide to transfer because the times were hard, and I'm allowed to, and the next year I go somewhere else because the grass is not always green on the other side, and I transfer again, So now when I leave school, hopefully I get a degree, but if I don't get a degree, who do I have a relationship with to go back and say, I need help to get my degree? Who would have a relationship to say, can you help me get a job, coach? Because the percentages say not many of us will be NBA players. So let's say 85% of us, where do we go? What are we doing? So now, Coach, I need a job and I need opportunity so I can have a successful life and a successful career. So who helps me get those opportunities? Well, if I've been with 3 or 4 different coaches, I have no ties to either one of them, because we cut a deal. So we cut a financial deal. That was the relationship. So now I'm on to the next guy. So I think we have to find a way to have a level of consistency, because a lot of young men, though they're talented, not all will be pros, and you get X amount of dollars. Well, you got to get taxed on that money. How do you handle that money? But that's another story. We can get to that. You got to be able to manage that money, try to manage that money, and who are the right people around you to not take that money from you. And I think those are the valuable lessons that need to be taught. So there's a lot of relationships that are breaking up as we speak, because a young man gets money, and a lot of people think they owe that money. And then all of a sudden you're breaking families up, because families feel like I deserve something. I should get some of that. So there's a lot of stuff that we don't talk about behind the scenes. So I wish there was consistency in how we distribute the money. Now, it could be $1 million a player. That's fine. But I think the bigger issue is the transfer portal, because I want young men and young women to have some consistency so they can have opportunities after college. And that's my biggest concern.
Oh, yeah. Well, we are in the 4th quarter. We're in the Pull Up Podcast show, talking to my guy, Coach Quanzo Martin. Here, Coach Zoe, formerly known. If you got a question for him, pull up on us. Let us know what the question is so we can put it in the box and we can make sure Coach answers it before we get out of here. Val, I see you just jumped on. Did you have a question or comment for Coach at all?
I do, but I want to do this first. It's our official 4th quarter, and
Coach know about the shot clock. He already told you he was shooting them threes. Don't put the ball in.
I've been enjoying and listening in the background, Coach Zoe, and it's been wonderful hearing of your journey. The one thing that I've noticed is that it's not a lot of men of faith that play in the league or coach. What's been something in your faith that's continually helped you in coaching young men?
I think first and foremost for me is embracing. I've always tried to embrace my uniqueness. Who am I? Because God has blessed me with gifts that are only designed for me. Mm-hmm. So I've always tried to focus on pursuing the best version of me. And if God is the most important being in my life, then I have to acknowledge that, because if I deny that, then I have a problem with him. And that's an eternal battle that I don't want to deal with. So I have to acknowledge that. Now, in coaching, it was a way I presented it to our players. They knew how I felt. I wasn't a guy say, you need to come to church with me. Neither that was never. But as I had a pastor one time, he was our team chaplain, and he said at one time, and I think this is so true. He said, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one. So it was really my everyday walk. It was my everyday walk, and that's what it was. Because of what happens, just like your children when they're young, 2, 3, 4 years old, they follow you, they mimic you, they say what you say and all that. Same thing with your players. You get guys coming to your program 18 years old, they just follow your movement. They want to see your consistency, and they do want to be coached. So for me, that was just my everyday life, and I stayed true to who I was from day one. And I think that's most important. But I've always embraced it, and I try to live a healthy lifestyle, consistent lifestyle of love, good health, learning, having a peace of mind and joy, and finding my happiness. So ultimately I can give that happiness to my wife and to my players.
Thanks, Coach. Back to you, Tony.
You. Val, he's giving a lot of gems. I think I'm like him, Coach, having one of those dartboards, you got to hit that bullseye, because that's where we at right now. And if you look at behind it, and the funny part about it is that when you look at a lot of the guys, man, that's coming out of those situations, like you said, with us out the cities, that really had to fight and really had to do some things. A lot of people, they don't get it, or sometimes they don't understand it. And just to see the fight that you took, and you still out here grinding, man, I wish you nothing but absolutely the success. I love to come on at all counts and sit down and chop it up on the show with you over there, man. And we're gonna continue to promote anything and how we can do it. Tell the people in the audience how they could get an opportunity to watch It All Counts, and where can they go? Give them some details about it.
Oh, thank you, Tony. It's called It All Counts Podcast. You follow on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and also Spotify. And I think it's a great podcast. It's a lot of great shows. It's not just sports. It's some phenomenal shows. And I don't take that lightly, because we take a tremendous amount of pride. I do my homework on our guests, and we're consistent with it. It's a lot of fun. But I think you will all enjoy it. And you can follow me on Instagram if you want to, Coach Conzo. It's only one of those in America, CUONZO. So you don't have to worry about it. It's only one in the United States of America. That's beautiful. But I will say this to your guests, and I appreciate you and Val having me on. It's been a phenomenal show. Every morning, thank God for your life, your health, and the opportunity to see another day. And next, ask him for knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, and ultimately a peace of mind. And I think when you do that, you can't lose. No matter the score, you can't lose. And I would always say to our team, if we play the way we're supposed to play, we play as hard as we're supposed to play, you never have to look at the scoreboard, because you would die a winner.
Yeah, exactly right. No matter what the outcome. And I'll tell you, to give you that, Coach, you know how we sometimes I'm talking to Val about this, how we sometimes wait till Christmas time and we set a New Year's resolution. I'm going to lose so many pounds. I'm going to gain.
Yes.
I was talking to, I think you last year, I was going through some struggles, doing some things. And a guy told me, say, hey, Coach Tony, you always set resolutions based on things that are attainable. And so I said, you're absolutely right. So I made the most basic, and this is actually right at the time that Val and I came together to do our first show almost 24 months ago, give or take. And at that time, I told myself my lucky number was 7. I pledged my frat Kappa Alpha Psi number 7 online. My birthday's in July. Both my son and my daughter that you met, birthdays in July. My baby girl, my granddaughter's birthday is, the new baby is born Easter weekend on 4/7. So 7's happened to be that number. So I set my clock, and I made a New Year's resolution at that time. Set my clock at 6:53 in the morning, 7 minutes to 7. I get up by 7 o'clock. I get on my knees. I grab the Bible. I flip it 7 times. I close my eyes. I point, and I read 7 verses. And I did that. And that was not worrying about losing weight, gaining weight. That was just self-knowledge and help. And over the next 8 to 9 months, my sports marketing company came together. I signed 3 or 4 athletes and doing some big things on the NIL side of the house. Val and I connected on a podcast show, and then it went phenomenal, started doing big numbers. And now here I am a year later from that point, and I'll launch my own show, and you're my very first guest. So when I say the power of the man upstairs, I definitely believe in that. Staying focused and staying true to who you are.
Amen. That's beautiful.
But hey, you know, I appreciate that, Coach. It's been wonderful. You guys, you've been listening to my guy, Coach Zoe Martin, here on the Pull Up Podcast Show, and my girl right there in the corner, Val the Voice. You'll see us tomorrow night on Interludes Talk on Tuesdays. Pull up on us there on YouTube as well and get some more knowledge. And Coach, man, anytime you want to come back, man, you are more than welcome, my man.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed myself. Pleasure meeting you, Val.
Pleasure meeting you as well. I really appreciate you coming by and stopping by and letting us and talk with us. Very quickly, I see that our coach went ahead and mentioned that on tomorrow, we're back, and we're doing what? The Oscar nominations hit in the morning on tomorrow, and we'll be talking some of the best films that came out in 2023, including Oppenheimer and Flowers of the Killer Moon. And so we'll be chit-chatting about that. But my gosh, this has been a phenomenal time. Let's do it again on next Monday. Make sure you come and pull up. Coach Zoe, Coach Tony, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. Oh my gosh. And thank you so much, April, in the chat. Thank you so very much. Christopher Robinson says, fantastic show. Always good to hear from you. Then also Eric, another tall black guy in the chat from the Shy. Thank you so very much. And then Coach CEO Facts. So good to see you. And then William K, Chi-Town to Chi-Town. Love it, Coach. Love it, Coach. And we thank you guys so very much. So we'll be back on next week. Make sure that you come and you pull up. Bye-bye.
It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. Bounce the Voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the Pull Up Podcast. So, I said bounce the Voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the Pull Up